The lithium market has been an absolute whipsaw after lithium prices saw a 10x gain early this decade. Lithium miners are now struggling with overcapacity and disappointing EV sales. Daniel Jimenez is a partner at Illy Markets. Daniel, welcome to Kitco.
Good afternoon, Michael. Thank you for having me here.
Let's talk about this lithium market. You said in an interview that the sentiment is bad right now. SQM had their quarterlies out. They were looking at a 63% drop in profits right now. What's going on with lithium?
Yeah, look, first of all, we have to put this lithium prices in context, right? We have seen lithium prices moving from historic levels of 6 to later on 18, then they dropped to 5, then they moved to 88, and now they're back at levels of 12, 10, who knows. So the drop of profit is evidently all over because of this record high prices of $18+ at one point. But and the sentiment is evidently back because once you get used to this high prices, you hope that they will continue forever. On the other hand, you have to take into account that these high price levels which we had enabled a lot of supply to come very quickly online or into production, and supply which of high cost of production, right? So we have today a group of producers who are definitely struggling with today's price levels. Others which are still making money, but not the levels they made 2 years ago, but still making money today. And the other perspective we have based on these prices is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to justify capacity expansions, so brownfield expansions, and also very difficult for greenfield projects to finance, right? So we are in the preparation of probably a next shortage of products simply because expansions are not happening as quickly as they should. Now, the sentiment is evidently bad, and we have the different elements for that to account for. First of all, and that's probably the most important one, is that the growth of EV sales has declined. And although we have very good numbers coming out from China, Europe has essentially flattened, and the US has started a very to grow at a low rate. So that is the first element which really affects the underlying demand in a significant way. Then we have another element which is making it difficult for the lithium producers, and that is that in this growth of EV sales, which is still going on in China, well, an important part of this growth is in electric vehicles, but in plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, which compared to a full electric vehicle, have a battery size which is probably around 1/3 to 1/4 of what an electric vehicle's battery size is. So although we see a higher number of EV sales, the actual average battery size is decreasing, and that means less lithium. And then I would say we have a last element to account for, and that is the growth of share of LFP cathode material compared to NMC cathode material. And the truth is that LFP has a lower lithium intensity per kilowatt hour than NMC. And therefore, also the consumption of lithium per kilowatt hour has decreased. So here we have a series of effects which are producing this lower lithium demand than expected, and which is then reflected in these prices which we have today.
Daniel, how much supply destruction are we seeing? Are we seeing people that are cutting back more, delaying capacity and expansions? Although on the same time, we are seeing people that are still marking forward with production, notably SQM.
Yeah. Yes, indeed, we're seeing some, I wouldn't say supply destruction, but definitely incremental supply delays. And this really, the decision depends on each company and particularly on what the cost of production is. Low-cost producers like brine producers, SQM, Argentinian projects, and even Greenbushes, from what we read from IGO's press release, quarterly earnings, they're all pushing for incremental volume. Pilbara is also going to push for incremental volume. And of course, these are those producers which are on the low end of the cost curve. Anything which is above that, of course, they're being more cautious in any capacity production expansion. They also have more interest and more need that the market stabilizes and prices do recover. And definitely for brownfield or greenfield expansions, it's becoming difficult to finance these expansions if we assume that prices will prevail at the levels they are today, which I don't think is going to be the case. But at least those lending the money, they look at this price levels and say, projects are not that profitable. So we are seeing significant delays in brownfield expansions as well as greenfield projects. To quantify that is not that easy, but I could think that at least 100,000 tons delays is something which we already see for next year.
Daniel, when you look out then, what types of projects are actually going to be advanced? There seems to be a variety of ways that these things can go forward. So it's the Solaris down in the Lithium Triangle. There's the hard rock operations in Canada, and of course in Australia. You've also have the companies that are advancing direct lithium extraction, which is, how would you say, the technology continues to get tested up right now. What do you think is going to be the mix of supply, given what we're seeing with this continued depressed lithium prices?
Yeah. As I said earlier, I think brine producers are definitely going to continue pushing for growth, since if we assume that they're in the $6 per kilo cost, $12 or $10 is still is a good cost, good price. Brine producers, I would say, then low cost mineral producers, and there we're probably going to talk about Greenbushes, about Pilbara eventually. Probably in Brazil, where costs have shown to be fairly low-cost producers. And definitely, I could also see that push coming out of Zimbabwe. But here we also have some other considerations, and this might be more in the, I don't know how to call it proper, in the conspiracy theory space. And that is, if you think of lithium producers today, consumers today, we have two companies, CATL and BYD, which together today, this year, will probably consume 450,000 tons of LC. And they are also, they own mines in China, particularly. And evidently, if they can, keep their production up and running, which is limited, probably together 30,000 tons. If they can keep it up and running, and by doing so, create a surplus in the market and therefore maintain prices depressed, they might lose money in their own production, but they make money with the other 400,000 tons, which they have to buy, and they buy now at a lower price. So, yes, is there going to continue being a push? If I was any of them, I would continue pushing for my own expensive production to keep the market oversupply and therefore be able to buy the rest of the material at a lower price. Now, these, of course, are conspiracy theories, but I think from a practical point of view, they're quite executable.
Daniel, does lithium garner more government interest than other metals? Mexico nationalized the lithium sector. Chile demanded that lithium projects be developed jointly with the state.
Yes, lithium has been like, the trendy metal, the one where ideology plays a big role, in the sense that, as I would say, between ideology and ignorance, governments in Mexico, in Chile, in Bolivia think that this would be the next oil, which is definitely not going to be. But because of that, they have been pushing for an increased role of government in the output of lithium. And the truth is, the consequences of that is that Mexico probably killed an industry which never started. Bolivia has been with the same speech over the last 20 years, and although having reasonably good resources, has not been able to produce lithium. And in the case of Chile, fortunately, there was Atacama, which was a little bit out of the scope of where politicians could put their fingers on, because the mining property was not subjected to the limitations new mining property is, and therefore Atacama was able to be developed. But I would say for the rest of Chile, it's becoming also, it's difficult with the policies which this national lithium strategy has lined out.
Daniel, you mentioned Zimbabwe earlier. Africa is becoming a more important continent for lithium. Why?
Well, Africa has natural resources, and we have to think that Zimbabwe has been a lithium producer over the last 30 years. And during the low price periods, Zimbabwe has always been a producer of lithium concentrate. The thing is, we did not see it in the market because that concentrate went straight to the glass and ceramic industry and it was never converted into lithium chemicals. But on a cost per lithium unit, they were always competitive. Now, Chinese companies have taken control of those resources, expanded extraction capacities, concentration capacities, and that material is being refined. So, yes, Zimbabwe should also be as a resource at the lower end of the cost curve, and therefore, as long as more discoveries happen, and assuming that they are for an equivalent grade, yes, we'll try to see Zimbabwe as a significant player in this industry.
How would you assess the West's attempts to build its own critical mineral supply chain? Is the West standing up any sort of supply chain that would be competitive, say, with China? The Department of Energy has made some big loans, notably $2.26 billion to Lithium Americas for Thacker Pass.
Yeah. To be honest, I have a relatively critical view on that, in the sense that the problem of the supply chain in the EV space is not lithium. If you're thinking from a practical point of view, the two biggest lithium producers in the world are Australia and Chile, both of them who are free trade agreement partners with the US. So from that perspective, the US should not have any problem to have access to lithium, assuming it's a critical mineral. The real problem for that sake, of everything outside of China is that, with exception of Korea and Japan, nobody else knows how to produce batteries in an efficient way. And with the development of LFP, which is a lower cost battery, and today roughly at 60% of the cost of an NMC battery, well, China knows how to produce that battery. Not even Japan and Korea know how to produce it efficiently, right? So we are confronted here, and the West is confronted with a situation where they want to have an integrated supply chain, but the problem is they start with not knowing how to produce batteries. And then, without that, you cannot build the upstream because you don't have a market share. So it makes no sense, for example, to have a lithium extraction in North America if then the material has to go anyway to Korea, Japan, or China for a battery to be produced. So I would rather say that the West needs to focus first on batteries. whether it's that developing technology or bringing in Chinese know-how to build batteries in the US or in Europe. Otherwise, it makes no sense to come with the upstream, so to produce cathodes in this part of the world. And then why would you mine at a higher cost if you don't have where you have to ship it anyway to Asia? So it's a problem where you have to start with it downstream and then little by little move upstream. And we've seen that in Europe, for example. In Europe, we have seen that the EV industry attracted battery manufacturing to Europe. And now with battery manufacturing, cathode manufacturing is moving into Europe. So it's a sequence, it's a wagon which follows a train, but the wagon will not move on its own without a train, a locomotive in front of her.
The big oil and gas companies are entering the lithium sector, Daniel. Exxon will be focused on brines. Why are they in this space? What skills can they bring to the sector?
Yeah, this is from what they have publicly said, right? And that is, look, we want to participate in this industry because of the energy transition, but we only want to participate if we bring in or we can leverage some of our skills. And what are we good at? Deep drilling, and we're also good at chemistry, which I agree. So then the focus has been, and you have seen this with what Exxon is doing, with what Equinor is doing. Well, they're focusing on underground brines, deep brines, and they are hoping that their chemical capabilities and resources will allow them to develop an efficient process to produce lithium through a direct lithium extraction technology of these brines, which do have or less than lithium concentrations than the brines which you have in the Andes. But also you do not have the conditions to do an evaporation process in the part of the world where you have. So they have to go with the chemical process at DLE. So far, I would not say that DLE has been successful, really. The fact that we have this new type of players with abundant resources, economic, but also chemical know-how and industrial capabilities probably is increasing significantly the chances that finally these technologies are economically viable.
Lastly, Daniel, what is some of the key milestones you're paying attention in the lithium sector into the fall and into next year?
I would think the source of the root source of the things we're living today is EV sales and how they have slowed down, right? Slowed down. The fact that the West is imposing tariffs on Chinese EVs will probably extend this period where EVs are relatively expensive compared to internal combustion vehicles. Therefore, the growth we were foreseeing maybe 6 months ago or a year ago is probably going down. So how much that increase is really is what we need to monitor. The other thing which for me is also very could also be a big game changer is fast charging. Fast charging with the promise, for example, of being able to charge a battery of a vehicle in 10 minutes and drive 600 kilometers, which is something what CATL is promising today, and it's starting to do. Well, that essentially makes the experience of charging an electric vehicle almost the same as going to the gasoline station and putting gas. And if that happens, and if this infrastructure is there, then the decision for many consumers who are not willing to go electric because of range anxiety, because of charging time, well, this could be which could change their decision and then go electric. So we have to wait to see whether this happens quickly or not. Or as I said, CATL and Geely have announced this already, that they're deploying. And it will be very interesting to see if this is a push for new consumers to go electric, so to speak.
Daniel, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
My name is Michael McRae. You're watching Kitco Mining.